Glad you can make it, Shawn. Get your headphones on.
No, I'm going to do it like this. I can't get my AirPods to work. Not sure why.
Do you know how many times I've heard that in the past year?
What are the chances you think it's user error?
Oh, 900%.
Well, why would something work one way and then do it the exact same way the next time it doesn't work?
It's probably connecting to all your Apple devices throughout the house.
No, it looks like it's actually. Well, now they're dead anyway.
Well, that usually. Are you sure they weren't dead the whole time you were trying?
Yes, I am positive they were freshly charged the last time I tried.
Hi guys, it's Jordan.
Hey Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. I had to log in through Heather's computer, but I can't get the audio to work, so now I'm doing audio through my phone. Always fun technology.
Well, it works.
It does. It does.
Why don't you just wear your big giant gamer headphones?
No. I think not.
I like seeing you a little frazzled. It's good for my health.
You would have been entertained when I read that email.
Last night?
No, this morning. God, can't make it up.
Oh, I loved it. It fills my soul when I know that you're getting all frazzled.
Oh, I know.
And it's not even a big deal, too.
No, I know. It's ridiculous.
When it's not a big deal is when it's my favorite.
Well, that's when you can tell me. That's when later on I can tell you, see, you got all worked up for nothing.
That's why I sent you the text and said, settle down. Mike's here. Yes. Oh, no.
Harris' car is here.
It's Chad's dashboard. No, it's Chad's ceiling.
Oh, no.
Nope, Chad says bye.
Chad's not playing that game with us.
Morning, beautiful people.
He's talking. No, he was talking to me. He was talking to me.
Sorry.
I'm in the car. I apologize. I'm in the car going to pick up another car that's in the shop. So, you know how it goes.
No problem.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Chad's going to be our only guest.
That makes it that much more valuable, though.
You know what's interesting is they sent that out saying Shawn was going to teach a class and no one shows up. Last week when I did a class.
See? Promotional error.
Yeah, but Travis pays the people. He paid me $20 to join. I don't know about you guys.
Tell him that.
That thing when you have to pay.
I know. So is the Korby team in the office, or you guys all remote?
Still remote. Matt goes in there daily. Got a wicked echo.
Yeah, I saw Matt the other day.
Keep that
Cleaning
on.
out my office. You guys could have a little call room.
Yeah. Look, I can do my own
I
ventriloquist.
hear what you said.
I think it's because Jordan had the computer and called in. I think her audio is working on her computer now.
What are the chances she's still by the computer?
She might be making coffee.
I think it got fixed.
I was thinking that was going to be a long hour if that's the way it was going to go.
Quick little things.
So I'm on your call, Shawn. This is Lisa. But I'm sitting here at a house waiting for a buyer who's been bugging me to see this house. So we'll see if he shows.
They better show.
I know. It's this overpriced house that everybody wants to see and everybody wants to lowball, and it's like, I just don't want to deal with it. Like, wait till we get it priced right.
Yeah. I showed a house the other day that was, the sellers bought it 8 months ago, and they put it back on the market 10% up in 8 months.
Wow. They
Just added 10%.
Well, it's probably because they had to cover their costs.
Just for the privilege of living there.
Yeah, I wonder what it is. Are they like, is it haunted or something like?
No, it's a beautiful house. It was $700,000, and then they're marketing it now for $769,000. And
Wow.
the highest comp in the area within the last year is that house itself. So it's like
competing against itself.
Yeah. Love to see an appraiser get a hold of that and just pull it right down. Oh, it looks like the 700 is the price.
All right.
I think we'll probably just wait another minute or two and then roll in here. I know Chad's got stuff to do. I don't want to keep him waiting.
I got to go lift with Travis. Try to beat Travis out.
I haven't had any dreams
His arms
about
are
you.
bigger than my legs.
About you.
Hey, my wife is here, so be careful.
Why is that weird?
And my dog, so be very careful, okay? Careful what you say.
Okay, I've got
Hey, Lisa,
a little...
Brad and Jana say hi. They love you.
Well, hello to them. I love them too, and I miss their house.
And I miss their house.
Wonderful.
I think it's Chad with the echo. All right, so in the chat notes there, I just posted kind of a little guide that we put together for today's class. And yeah, thanks for everybody coming and joining us today. When we were kind of talking last week, I just asked Shawn, I said, hey, it'd be kind of fun to do a team taught class in terms of how we've built a team. And so it's going to be kind of a way to see maybe both sides of the coin from both a rainmaker perspective and a director of operations perspective. And then it looks like Mike and Lisa are on here too. So a couple other team members too that can always chime in and share kind of what makes our team work. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. I'm not, it's disabled. So Jordan, if you happen to see that, if you want to give me privileges, that would be great. But the first part that we kind of wanted to cover was what we've learned from the Red Book. So in Gary's Red Book, he talks about leads, listings, and leverage. And that is such a common trend for teams to be successful, having those three categories. And it was interesting when we were kind of prepping for this class, I actually went back in the Red Book and was reading through it again. I'm like, wow, this stuff is still super relevant. Amazing. So when we talk about the leads, listings, and leverage, I'm just going to start with leverage. And there's two types of leverage. So there's systems leverage and there's people leverage. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about system leverage. So system leverage could be, what you're using for checklists in terms of transaction management, for lead follow-up. It could be for what you're doing for like lead generation, if you have some systems in place for that. The people side of leverage, that's going to be more like the who. So who's going to do the task? So if we're talking about people leverage, it's administrators, transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, showing assistants. It can be a multitude of different people that actually help fulfill that role of leverage. And ultimately what we're trying to do with leverage is to free up more time to do those dollar producing activities. All right, looks like I can share now. So hopefully if you're able to see the screen now, you should be able to see just kind of this top part. And I just did highlight, it's on page 97 of the MREA. If you kind of want to read through it again, it was pretty relevant information, even when it was written quite a few years back. So I guess, Shawn, would you add anything with leverage, systems, or people, or anything additional to that?
The thing that I think would stand out to me is, especially if somebody's a brand new solo agent or somebody that's coming from level 1, which is the MREA, you're by yourself doing everything. I think the earliest thing you get is the systems leverage, which is just like your database. So it's everything you can do to kind of keep things organized and have your systems, and then it's people. But it can be really fast between those two things. But I think systems comes first and then the people.
Awesome. So the next one we've got here too is leads. So I typed this out in terms of lead generation versus lead receiving. So there's a big difference between the two. Lead generation is the act of going out and finding that business. And when I was referencing the Red Book again yesterday, Gary specifically says in there, you're not in the real estate business, you're in the lead generation business. And it was kind of that reminder of, our real estate business could be really shiny and sparkly, but if we don't have any leads to run through it, it's not even a business. It's just something, it's not going to produce anything for anybody, and it's not going to fulfill its ultimate role. So that lead generation part of it, we've heard it 4 million times, from the top down, from the bottom up, from every side to side in KW. It's that most important time of the day. And lead receiving, now that's going to be at a point when you are able to trade money for time. And what we have found is that at some point, the calls or the activities need to take place. And I think Shawn actually said it best when he was doing a bold class. I think the instructor had mentioned that those calls need to happen whether it's you or someone you hire to make the calls. The end result is going to be the same. If your task is to make 100 calls and you do it or someone else you hired to do it, is the net still the same? And the answer is yes, those calls still get made. So lead receiving is going to be kind of more that passive situation where you're maybe putting the money or the time to build the systems to generate it. Sometimes we're lucky with getting referrals. obviously you put some work into building those systems around those referrals to put the 33 touches into place and stay in communication with them. But lead generation, kind of what Shawn was mentioning too, was like if you're a solo agent getting started, that's a must, and that shouldn't change. That shouldn't change as your business gets bigger, if you're still in production. Any other words? Wisdom?
I would say the one thing I would add to what you said that I got from Bold, that was one of my big ahas from that Bold was when he said exactly what Travis just shared. Those calls and those contacts, those things have to be made. And, there were people falling out and stuff like that. But then there were people that were not falling out, but they weren't making all those calls personally. And they were hiring an ISA, or they were having somebody do, client reach out touches. And so it's like they have to happen whether it's you or not. And that plays right into that leverage piece too.
So the last triangle here is listings, and listings give us kind of that rare opportunity to really control our day, because working with buyers can often lead you running all over the place. And I just highlighted a couple things that were in the red book there, but what listings also provide are those marketing opportunities. I know in the red book it talks about a 2-to-1 ratio, so generating 2 pieces of business for every 1 listing. Now I don't know if that's always the case for every listing we do, but we definitely put that as a front focal point for us. Like when we list a property, we want to list it at the end of the week so we can do an open house on it. We want to try to capture that buyer business that's surrounding those listings. And you just don't have that same kind of exposure working with a buyer. And I do know that there's some agents that will market their buyers, or they'll send out letters to neighborhoods looking for listings. And that's, you definitely could do that too. That's just not anything we've ever done. The other things I just put in there was control. So like controlling your schedule, controlling your time, controlling the process. It's a pretty predictable process right now with listings. We're kind of spoiled because they're going very quickly. And as long as clients kind of just follow along and trust us as a professionals, we can kind of predict what that outcome is going to look like. So having control of that dollar per hour. So on average, when we were looking at our numbers as a team, we're netting more on listing sides than buy sides. And that can be from a various reasons. Price point, it could be what commission you're earning. If we look at the dollar per hour, like on a listing side, the majority of the time is spent on the front end. And then once an offer comes in, but you're not going out and showing 30 properties, writing 5 offers and getting none accepted. So it's a little bit more predictable, especially in today's market.
The other thing too, the MREA, talks about the fact that one properly marketed listing is going to generate you another buyer lead. So all things being equal, if you have X amount of marketing dollars or time or resources or bandwidth even, focus on the listings, the buyers will come with the listings. But it doesn't work the other way around. So you could spend the same amount of resources attracting buyers, and you're going to have buyers, and you may end up with referrals, but you probably aren't going to have a side that's tied directly to that buyer. So listings, of course, is the smart way to focus almost all of your lead generation efforts.
And the last thing that we put in there was the volume. It's a lot easier to manage 10, 15, 20 listings than it is to manage 10, 15, 20 buyers. So when we look at it from a volume perspective, you're able to do more with the same amount of time. Because again, if we kind of piggyback to last week's class, you have to have those systems built on the front end to be able to support the volume and make sure you do a great job on the back end. But you're able to just do a whole lot more with that, with those clients, because they're just kind of along for the ride with the process. So this was the other part here too, these 3 important questions. So who's going to do it? How will they do it? And what will they do it with? So these questions are kind of the crux of anything that you're building within a team. So figuring out who's going to be in charge of what it is, how they're going to use it. So like if we have a great idea, we need to figure out who's going to lead that. And if we do, what systems and processes are they going to need to do it? You know, what tools? And if they're not able to have those, if we're not able to clearly identify those, I can almost guarantee, you know, the probability of that idea turning into a reality is going to be pretty low. So those are just kind of some of the questions that come up in the MREA in terms of when we're looking at, you know, implementing something as a team, and something that I think we do somewhat naturally to some degree, because if we kind of take a step back and look at, you know, my strengths versus Shawn's strengths and my weaknesses versus Shawn's weaknesses, we're kind of like a yin and a yang. Where Shawn excels, I'm not great at, and vice versa. So there's a very easy, natural way for us to be able to just say, hey, this is kind of more in your wheelhouse, this kind of plays more towards your strengths, and vice versa.
Love this.
Thanks, Andy. All right, so culture matters. So this is something that's really kind of important on our team. It's like the driving factor for the success of our team, I feel like. And it's that the people on our team matter, and they matter. The people on our team matter more than what they produce. And you don't always get that in business or in real estate too. And being able to really pour into people and really work with them and, you know, see them achieve goals is awesome. But it's even, I find it to be even more fulfilling when I know, like, hey, their family's fed. Hey, their family went on a big vacation. And hey, their family's debt free. Like, those are the things that kind of are the soul fulfilling stuff. That doesn't show up on any of my Excel tracking sheets. It doesn't show up in Top Producer. It doesn't show up anywhere. But we know we're succeeding when the culture of our team is healthy. Shawn, I know that this is something we've talked about a ton, ad nauseum, basically. But yeah, I don't know if there's more you want to add to how we approach that, or what your thoughts are. Or...
Well, like Travis said, especially over the last recent years, we've really honed in on what is our culture. And you hear that word talked about all the time in Keller Williams, but it really is so important. And sometimes you don't notice that there's something wrong with the culture until there's something wrong with the culture, if that makes any sense. Until there's a problem, and then you're like, hold on a second, this isn't what it stands out. This isn't what we're about, or this isn't how we do things. So for instance, we've gotten very, very tuned into what is our culture, and it's not one of negativity. It's not one of scarcity. And to phrase that more positively, it's people that are thinking abundantly, that know that everybody around them, we're all going to succeed together. It's not me or you. It's not that kind of unhealthy competitiveness. It's a healthy competitiveness. And we do spend a lot of time up front following the career visioning path to make sure that not only are the people going to be productive, but we're going to actually enjoy being in business together. There have been producers that we've interviewed where we're like, they're a rock star. They're going to do a lot of volume. And we think that would be a cultural mistake for our team, because it's not going to set them up to win, and it's not going to set up to win. And I can see the frustrations, and that's part of the beauty of the career visioning process, when you get to really identify that up front. And of course, we've failed forward on that many times. So there's been many times where we've self-discovered afterwards, okay, that was a cultural mismatch, and here's why we didn't see it, and here's what we can do in the future to see it. So it's a huge deal for us, the culture of the team. One of the other things too is I was on my coach sent me a video of another team And they were talking about team stickiness and how they create an environment that works for them, and they're just doing fantastic, especially in terms of retention and recruiting. But one of the things that they asked themselves, and I thought it was an incredibly powerful question, was how do we create a team that we would want to join? And I thought that was a really, really cool question. And so that's kind of been in the forefront of my mind now since hearing that, which is very recently. So I just keep thinking, I kind of go through that whole process. What can we keep doing to the team, to the culture, so that it's something that I would want to join if I went to a different state? I'd be like, that's where I want to be. So I don't know if I kind of spun off on a couple different directions, but yeah, the culture is just a huge, huge piece of it.
It's and full transparency, this is why I love doing these kind of classes, and especially when we have other team members on there, is because there's going to be a different perspective or a different way it's conveyed. And I sure appreciate getting to hear that too, because I know, Shawn, you do a great job articulating that. I'm also going to pick on Lisa too, because I think she's excellent at being able to convey this very message too. And again, I don't pretend to think that our team has all the answers under the sun. I think we do some things right, and if I'm honest, I probably am more critical of us as a team than I should be. But this is one of the things that I think that we've done a really good job on, and love to be able to have that perspective from other team members too.
I have been saying ever since I found a home on this team, I've been here for 4 years, that after having the opportunity to see what it feels like to work with people who appreciate me and empower me and encourage me and push me, I don't really ever want to work somewhere that Travis Olson isn't, because we can pick on each other and we can push each other and then pick on each other more. And it's all about the culture. I realized very quickly that I didn't care what I was doing. I cared about who I was doing it with. And that all goes back to culture. Culture is how you retain people. So, yeah, I'm a fan.
Sounds like
great point.
What, Shawn?
I said, it sounds like I better make sure you stick around.
Yeah, I don't want to work anywhere Travis doesn't either. He sounds awesome.
Don't make me choose between my parents, you guys. Don't you ever split.
Travis is the glue. Travis, you're the glue. You're the horse.
I'll pick on Mike. Mike, one of our newest team members too, and Mike's been with us for almost 2 months. 2 months now. What have you seen just coming into the team, and what I would just love feedback you can share, because if people are working on, whether they're an individual agent right now or they're working towards building a team, like these are kind of questions you have to determine, what you want your team to look like. And it really starts from the top down on painting or casting that vision, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest thing that I like, our 9 a.m. Stand up every morning, well, Zoom up, I guess, is really important to me. I like to connect with everyone, kind of lay out, we can see how everyone's day is kind of going to go. And just kind of like Lisa, get some laughs in there, get the energy up. And if you're not having fun, it's not really worth it, in my opinion. So it empowers me to just keep working as hard as I am, because I know everybody else is as well. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great point too. Like we definitely goof around and have fun and joke and do all that stuff, but we also work hard, and when the rubber meets the road, we'll work until the job's done every time.
And I think there's a very reciprocal relationship. When I came onto this team, I was never once given the feeling that you're the help. I was never called leverage. I know I'm leverage, but I was never called that. I'm a human being, and I'm a helper. Just as I wouldn't have a job if you guys didn't need me. You wouldn't be able to do as much production if you didn't have me. And having that incredible symbiotic relationship, I've never felt belittled for just being the help. And that's critical. That's absolutely critical. I don't think I would have made it a few months if I had felt other than. So yeah, and again, that's 100% culture.
Well, and it's crazy to think. So here's a way that me and Lisa talk about that sometimes. Is I'll say, Lisa, you've done more listings than anybody on our team other than Shawn. So you've seen more listings than any of the agents. So when you see something, you know it. You know what's right. You know what to do, and you know how to guide people. And those kind of having those kind of relationships with team members is so critical for future success. You know, you want people that are willing to, you know, point out what's wrong and how to fix it, and be gracious about it. You know, like I think that's the thing that, you know, if somebody makes a mistake other than myself, everybody's very gracious. If I make a mistake, there'll be memos written up. Shawn loves to just hold that over me for about 3 to 4 days.
Creates good.
Yes. Yep. My therapist, you know, we talk through it a lot, but I'm just kidding. We have fun. And that's the bottom line is, you know, you want to be in an environment where you know, you're successful, but you can also enjoy what you're doing.
High C's love making mistakes. One of their favorite things.
Not true. That is not true. Cool. And again, if you have any questions as we're kind of going to, feel free to, you know, pop in. We've got a little bit of a smaller group in here today, so, you know, I don't think it's going to be too distracting if we have any questions pop up.
Yeah, I would encourage that too. I mean, the level of the people that are on here, a lot of this stuff you guys probably already know. So feel free to take this. We could take this into Q&A at any point if there's anything specifically that you were looking to get out of it too, you know, so. Otherwise, keep rolling. Yeah.
Okay. So the next part in here, I found this little slide or image when I just searched up team roles. So, you know, we kind of know what these are with KW. KW has been talking about these kind of roles forever. It's just taken the rest of the industry a while to catch up. But I just kind of wanted to touch on some of these. So team leader, CEO, or rainmaker is a pretty common term for that. Executive assistant or director of operations. You know, I foresee that role as kind of overseeing how everything's running within the team, like the overseer of systems and processes and the overseer of people. Not necessarily as much client interaction as like a transaction coordinator. That's in my opinion, that's kind of what that looks like. Transaction coordinator is obviously handling anything once it goes, once an offer is accepted. And I know there's teams that do things differently. Like I know there's some teams that have transaction coordinators negotiate inspection stuff. We've never done that. And to be honest, I would have reservations about that because I would just be concerned on the level of disconnect that I think could happen, you know, from someone who's not at the inspection, reading something, not talking or not necessarily knowing the full story of that. And our agents do an excellent job with that. I see Lynn's got a question here too. What is your trigger to know when you need an additional admin, and what are you planning as your next hire? So for us, are you talking about when you're a solo agent or just for us in general when we hired Mike?
Any advice at all would be awesome.
I can jump in on that one.
Okay,
perfect. Lynn, I think there's a couple of different triggers. One is when the people that you have on the team get so overwhelmed with volume that they don't have time or capacity or bandwidth to do the work. I think the other one is when you have a specific need that's outside the necessarily, well, there's three. Then there's, if you have a need that's outside necessarily the skill set of the people that you have. And then the other one would be if you have something, you know how Gary says you have to make room for talent? If you have an opportunity, you have to look into it. You have to take that seriously. And the other one is everybody on your team working at their highest and best? So in other words, is there something that somebody can do better? So for instance, I'll use Travis as an example. Travis is like an empire builder. That's just kind of who he is. And he mastered transaction coordination. He does it at an amazing level. And through lots of conversations, we realized that he has got the talent and capacities. We said, could you be doing something more within the team to take us to the next level? And the answer became yes. And it was always a matter of timing, being able to take the transaction coordination away from him so that he could go into a different realm where he could step up into a different level himself. And so those two things kind of collided for us at the end of last year when Mike became available, because we weren't actually looking, although we knew we needed somebody to take some of those things off of Travis's plate if he was going to be able to step into those new roles. So that's when we said, okay, based on what Gary says, you make room for talent. We had some serious conversations. We weren't ready for it. We weren't necessarily looking for it, but we certainly spent a lot of time figuring out how we could make it happen and did a thorough analysis of pros and cons and considered everything. And that's when the more we thought about it and the more we talked about it, the more we're like, Mike, when can you start? Let's do this. This is going to be awesome. And it's been awesome because now Travis is stepping into a realm where, I don't think Travis would mind me sharing this. You get to a certain state sometimes where the same things you're doing, you become really, really good at it. And it's kind of your zone of excellence because you can do this at a high level without really even thinking about it, but it's not your zone of genius. It's not your highest and best. So we thought, well, if we can take these things off Travis's plate, what could he step in to help create working on the business, working deeper? And so I don't know if that answers the question, but those were some of the things that kind of come up with us. Before I forget, and then I want to hear if you have a specific other question, there's a great book out there called The Big Leap that I highly, highly recommend that talks about these different zones. And the difference between the zone of excellence and the zone of genius is really interesting to hear him talk about. But did that answer your question, Lynn?
I was just looking for some insight. We're doing a lot of planning for the upcoming year right now. And in my mind, I know I'd like to hire someone on a marketing side. Mm-hmm. Just trying to figure out when I can say, yeah, this is the good time to do that.
Yep. And we're still, to be honest with you, like Travis said earlier, we're still figuring things out too. We still have to think about that too. If we have a specific need that's outside of what we've got right now, then it's the question, do you bring somebody in-house? Do you do it virtually? Because some of those smaller, I don't want to call marketing small, but it's probably not something that on a day-to-day basis is going to be maybe 40 hours a week. So some of those things like that might be something that would be good for a virtual assistant or, you know what I mean? Some of those freelance projects, things like that, that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, that's the route I went for the first quarter, and we just want to know what we should be looking for to reevaluate that going forward after that. So thank you.
Yeah.
I would say one of those, the key things to know before you bring someone on though is, and again, I'm gonna use the term systems again, because that's kind of what I nerd out about, but you have to have that stuff ready for that person when they join, because if you don't, you're basically looking at two different types of personalities. You're looking at someone that's a task manager, or you're looking at a builder, and not really do a lot of those intersect. Like you might find a builder who loves building stuff, but they're not going to want to do the tasks after they're built. Speaking from experience, like that, I love building the systems, but boy, I've done a lot of transactions in my career, and I'm kind of excited to not.
Can you imagine how I would have melted down if you'd have hired me without having systems in place? I don't know that you guys would have kept me. I would have cried every day.
But it just is it's the easiest way to have that person get up to speed, because then we're not having to convey everything that's in our head. Like, and me and Mike still talk a ton, and questions come up because every transaction's a little bit different. But at least there's that baseline of like, okay, here's what needs to happen consistently every time, and then let's talk about the special cases from there. So if you're looking at hiring a marketing person, having that clear idea in your head of what you want that to look like before that person's even hired is such a crucial part of that. Unless you're looking for someone to basically build it, and you'll probably end up spending more if you have someone that needs to build it rather than someone that just needs to do the things.
So we also have a couple newer agents here. We don't have a lot of agents. And then we've got George, who's kind of been building a team from the ground up. Can you guys, like, how much business, how much reserves to comfortably make your first hire might be a really good topic.
Oh, that's a great question.
And I'm going to be quiet.
That's a great question. Well, what we do is we like to run with about 6 months of reserves for keeping the business afloat, so that if we don't have any closings, we're 6 months away from having to think about, trimming back hours or laying off, God forbid, or anything like that. So we like to have a 6 month pad. The other reason for that is that it helps us make decisions based on strategy rather than reactionary fear. Do you know what I mean? If you're running really lean month to month and you're thinking about payroll next month, you are not in a good headspace to do almost anything in the business, whether it's lead generate, do business, build the business, anything. So the first thing I'd say is have a big pad. The second thing, and have it be 6 months. And
from an administrative perspective, I was very attracted to that. When me and Shawn were talking, when the team kind of split and I was talking with agents and stuff, I was like, that's something I want for my family. Like, cause yeah, January's coming, February's coming, and I don't want to be put in a spot where, oh, hey, Trav, we didn't have any closings this month. Sorry. And I would never, that's never entered my headspace with Shawn and Katie. That they would do anything possible to make sure that we're whole. But at the same time, knowing that pad's there gives you a sense of security.
That's awesome.
And then also, Lynn, then what we do is when we add somebody, we just literally we do 6 months of what that person, the reserves we'd need to keep that person employed, and we add that to the number before we draw any dividends. Does that make sense? So if we're gonna hire, I'm just gonna use a round number. If we were gonna hire somebody at 100,000, we would want to make sure that we have another 50 in reserves, so we could pay that person for 6 months. That make sense? Yeah.
And I think in terms of volume, it's tough, because if you have someone who's just a transaction coordinator, I think that number is very high on what someone could do. I could see Mike closing 250 plus transactions and not really breaking a sweat because we have systems to lean on. What I was running into prior to Mike was trying to build stuff, trying to manage transactions, working with agents, working with helping clients, and it gets to be a lot. So if you have your foot in a lot of different arenas, which most first admins do on a team, you put on a lot of hats administratively. You just kind of figure it out as you go. But if you're talking specifically about that role, I think Lisa could handle 100 plus listings probably pretty easily. And I think Mike could probably do 250 plus transactions pretty easily. And again, it's not asking Mike to go outside his comfort zone and, lead the team or do anything other than just kind of put your head down, get that business rolling. But we know that there's going to be more asked of everybody. So that's kind of the tricky part, is like, you kind of have to balance what that work capacity looks like. But again, it's all about those internal systems that have been built to support the volume for when it shows up.
Travis and Shawn, do you look at both a variable component as well as a fixed salary or fixed hourly rate for your administrative staff as well, or any sort of incentives on top of?
Yes. You mean in terms of pay structure? How, like compensation?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just and again, it probably depends on the individual, right? But
Yep.
I'm just curious to see if you have any mix of that, because we've started to incorporate that within our group, and it's, we, depending on the person, we found it's been successful if they're kind of enticed by additional income and like handling more transactions or helping with the overall revenue.
Yep, exactly. And we do that too. And it gives you a lot of flexibility too, because you're going to have a hard salary, and then you have the option of either bonuses based on sides, or you could, and some teams do profit share, where it's like the percentage of profit. I think that gets a little convoluted, and it requires, a different strategy. We do, we will do side bonuses, so that at some point we can keep the salaries fixed, but we have the flexibility to pay a lot more when we're having a lot more closings. So that way everybody has the ability to still increase their income, but it's all based on production. The more the team does, the better everybody does. You know what I mean? And so, and there's a different blend of salary and bonuses too. So you're totally at your discretion to kind of mix that up. But yeah, one of the other things that kind of stuck out to me too was that Ben Kinney's a big proponent of that. He says he will say, at some point this role is worth X, and it really isn't going to go higher than X. That doesn't mean that he doesn't still have the responsibility to create more opportunity for that person, but it's going to be in the form of additional duties or stepping into leadership, and or compensation through other means other than just having a salary that, hey, it's my raise, it's a 3% raise every year. That model, in my opinion, doesn't work in this industry, because there's too much unpredictable stuff. You could have a great staff that's been on a 3% raise for 5 years, and then you run into a tough time, and then that's money that's going out whether there's any closings or not. So I think having a hybrid is a smart way to go.
Oh, thank you. And then can you talk a little bit about who holds these staff members accountable, and what tools you guys use for that?
Yeah. So Travis and I would talk, and then Travis, you can take this over, and then Travis does accountability with Lisa and Mike.
Yep, and Shawn's still doing accountability with the agents right now.
Right.
And then we've started building towards having basically like team leads that are holding newer agents accountable within the team, because there is a span of control of how many people you can effectively manage, and we were kind of bumping our heads up against that. Shawn, I don't know if you want to roll out the growth share thing, but I think that was probably one of the most genius things that was implemented for us as a team.
Yeah, well, we have a kind of a model that's similar to Keller Williams, where if someone helps the team grow, then they share in some of the revenue from that person's production. So yeah, it's been kind of a win-win situation. It's pretty awesome.
Do you guys use a 401?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
a hybrid version of that.
For us administratively, that's what we use. But we also have it's like a one-page document that kind of tracks all of our stuff that we put together to kind of keep, it was meant to simplify the process. I don't know if it has or not. I know I see Her Majesty is here, so she can share with us.
Oh, you want me to share?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Actually, it actually does help when you use it. And commitment is my word for 2021, and I am using it. And Shawn can attest that I had it at my 411 on Monday.
Got
It's a
screenshots.
great way. Excuse me?
I said I got screenshots.
Yeah, to prove it. It's a great way to, log your calls, your lead gen, and more importantly, kind of keep track of your appointments. And then, how many appointments you had and how many reps you signed. It's a nice all-in-one sheet. And then we can customize it however we want. Like I have a couple 66-day challenges that I just attach to it. So it's a nice way for you to present everything and be held accountable. And then Shawn can say, why are these boxes empty? And I can say, because I'm a slug and I didn't do anything that day. Or he can say, wow, look at all the nats you did, and which is added to database. I can't remember what the terminology is. But anyways, it's a great form, and now I'll be quiet.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Does that help answer, Chad?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've got another question. I don't want to hog the time though.
No, go knock yourself out.
I'm curious to see you talk about lead gen. I know you guys do, a lot of referral business, and then I think like online leads too. Can you give a general breakdown either to established teams or like new agents in terms of where your leads come from? And what you'd recommend, like for a newer, for like a growing team, or, like Lynn mentioned, we have a lot of new agents on here, but.
Well, we've got a bunch of, our biggest source is still personal referrals, past clients, sphere of influence. Historically, we've always done really well on open houses. Of course, that's gotten clobbered a little bit. We still do some online stuff. We still have some third-party sites that send us leads. We do some Zillow, so we do get some business from that. But it's kind of the typical things. The thing that I always tell a new person is that your first deals are almost always going to come from your sphere of influence and open houses. So I still tell people to work on that as much as possible. And we're actually working internally on what we're going to do in terms of how and when leads are assigned and funneled and things like that. And I think we've done a pretty good job up till now, but we're still going to be working on that.
Yeah, I was just pulling up some numbers too. It looks like about, I would say about 50, I'm going to be super nerdy, about 58% of our business comes from our sphere. And that's been pretty consistent year over year. And like Shawn said, usually number 2 is going to be open houses. But again, it's just been such a weird year for us. But I think that, it's been weird for everybody, and we've all kind of figured out a way to adapt and find other ways to generate business, and I think our sphere has probably been even better this year than years previous, because I think it's usually closer to about 40%. But yeah, I mean, I think exactly what Shawn said is so true. It's, the people that already know you and know who you are going to be the ones that probably hire you and give you kind of that shot, to start to build your business. And I think the key with that too, again, is once we do a transaction with someone, we want to stay in touch with them forever. Like that's our goal, is to keep them in our database and stay in touch with them, because we want the service after the sale. We don't want it just to be a transactional based business. We want to, be able to connect with them. We did our pumpkin pie giveaway this year in the parking lot, and everybody was masked up and snow pants and everything. And how many did we give away? Was it 150 or something?
150, I think 150 or 160.
So people just drove through and picked them up. And it's an easy touch for us to be able to reach out and say, hey, come get this free thing. But it makes an impact, and when you do it consistently, Like, it's not just a flash in the pan. Like, we're committed to doing that for as long as we stay in real estate. At least I think. I mean, as long as I can see, we would continue doing that because people expect it now. And people get excited about it. And, you know, just finding kind of those pillars on how you want to build your business. The one word that is just echoing in my mind, though, is just you have to be consistent with it. You can't just kind of, oh, I feel like calling expireds today and then not do it, you know, for 2 weeks and expect to have someone call you up and say, hey, I got your postcard in the mail out of the 47 other ones and I decided to call you. Like, that's just not going to work.
Right. I've got this from going to many family reunions and mega camps. As you see, there's 19,000 different fantastic, shiny ways to generate leads in this business. But as Travis said, if you don't do any of them consistently, it's not going to work. So pick the 3 that you know are going to be your bread and butter. And then just like Gary says, success is boring. Just do it consistently. The other thing I would touch base on or add to with lead sources and percentages, Travis said 58% of ours was, sphere of influence, past clients, things like that. If that number, personal referrals, isn't the majority of the business, I think that's a warning flag. For an established agent, to me, that could be interpreted that you're not staying in contact enough with your past clients, and you're treating them more transactionally, and or you're not doing a good job and you're not getting referrals. So those are a couple possibilities that could indicate that. And for a newer one, if you're not getting it, you're probably spending money on things you don't need to, because the lower hanging fruit is going to be your sphere of influence. So that is where you should be focusing if you're a newer agent versus, oh, I'm going to spend a bunch of money buying leads or doing this. So the P&L and the breakdown of really knowing your sources of your leads is really good for diagnosing where your business is and where you should be strategizing for the following year.
Did you say that there's like 19,000 shiny objects at family reunion?
This last year there was 19,025.
So usually Shawn comes home with about 18,952.
It takes 1 week, me being debriefed and reminded of what I just said.
But he has changed. He does come home with a very focused situation. It used to be, we need to implement all these pages of notes. And now it's like, let's do this. And then I'm like, okay, we can digest that. We can do that one thing until we have proven we can do it consistently. And then let's add another thing. And I think that's where, you know, to kind of talk about that relationship with, you know, your administrative team, like that's kind of the thing that's worked well for us is Shawn is great at ideas, and he's great at coming up with the idea or what he wants. And I'm really good at being able to take that idea and implement it and create it and actually, you know, give it life. And, you know, that's a huge benefit when you can actually take something in someone's head and actually build it. And that's where I think that, again, when we talk about playing to each other's strengths, you don't necessarily want to hire an administrator that's just like you. Like that seems silly. You don't want 2 idea people talking about all their great ideas and doing nothing with their ideas. You know, you want people that are going to complement you, not necessarily mirror, I think.
100% agree.
200% agree for me. Okay. Any other questions pop up? Chad?
Hey guys.
Hey George.
Hey George.
Hey. So I think you guys made a good point, because I've been listening this whole time. So last year we talked to Andy, and he was coaching us, and we were thinking about stuff, and we hired our first admin. I don't know that we're ready mentally, physically, financially, but we wanted to learn something new, and we wanted to grow. And from talking to different groups and listening to you guys, I think I know where we made our mistake, but I think it was worth learning to figure out how to move forward. And what you said last year, I think made the most sense. Is I think we were finding somebody who can do something similar, but yeah, I think we need somebody who could do something different. I think I need somebody to complement me so that we can grow. And I don't think that our admin was a compliment, and that's why we felt like things weren't getting done, or we had a hard time teaching her. So I think that's a good point for us to keep in mind. I also like the fact that you guys talked about keeping that reserve, because I know that we came really tight, because we started off really good last year, and then it became a crunch, and we had more buyer towards the end of the year. And obviously, with the way that the market was going, the buyers did not pan out, and that we took a big hit from the buyers last year.
Yeah.
So I think you guys made some good points that we need to focus on this year, building the reserve and finding the complement, so that we're not searching for somebody who does what we do, but they need to be able to take our ideas and run with it. And I think that's where we got stuck.
Yep. And also talk about, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Saw a text pop up. I have limited RAM. Boom. Oh, here's what I was going to say, George. Sorry, totally distracted. When you talked about that person that might not have been a great fit. Spend a little time really figuring out what those weaknesses are that you have, and it takes some good reflection and fill them in with that. And if you don't have anybody right now, keep in mind that your first hire is probably the most important hire, because that person is going to drive and build the empire, and you have to get that first hire right. They have to be an empire builder. Like Lisa said, she doesn't want to go anywhere because of Travis. And that's huge, because it's all going to start with that wing person, so to speak. And remember too, that you'll know that you have talent when talent will push you, and Travis is not afraid to make me uncomfortable. In fact, he just flipping loves it. It drives me bananas. But that's what makes it work. You know what I mean? So talent is not afraid to push you as the rainmaker. And so you have to kind of be not only comfortable with it, but probably seeking it out. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I believe that you're right there, because that's what I was searching for, and I don't feel like I had that. I felt like they were waiting for me to tell them what to do, and I was like, well,
Ooh.
I needed help building my company, so I hired you, and I felt like I wasn't getting pushed at all, and I didn't like it. I wanted somebody to push me to another level.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I think being crystal clear on what position you're hiring for is really important. I think there's a place for making a receptionist hire early on, if that's the stuff you need. But if you're looking for a builder, that's a different skill set, and that's a very different pay bracket. If you're looking for somebody to help answer the phones and do some tasks, that's like $30,000. If you're looking for somebody to build a business, if you want to hire a CEO to sit next to you, it's a whole lot more expensive than a receptionist. And being really clear on exactly which types of duties you're looking for will help lend clarity to how much is it going to cost and where do you look for them. You have to look sometimes in different places in order to find that partner, that CEO, that vision maker.
And George, you'll know too that you have it when you can't imagine doing business without that person. Do you know what I mean?
So a question for you: when you hired Travis on, or however your relationship started, when you guys started this, how did you find him?
Actually, I kind of lucked into Travis, because when I was in a partnership for 6.5 years prior to us being the Korby home team in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew my ex-partner, and so he kind of came in through that way, and then he worked with us for 6.5 years, and then when we went our separate ways, I was lucky enough to have him come build the business with me. So that's, I'd, as much as Travis knows, I would love to take credit for being the genius that hunted him down and found him. I got fortunate, basically.
So
But,
what do you feel went wrong with the last partner that Travis brought in differently that you felt was a better fit?
Well, I worked with both Shawn and Shawn's previous partner. I was the administrator for that team also.
Okay.
When my two dads split up, it was brutal because I care about both of those guys tremendously, and I'm super loyal, and it was gut wrenching. Um, but I'm still happy with that decision that I made, and I don't look back and go, boy, I wonder what would have happened. And to be honest, George, what I quit my previous job with another agent when my wife was 7 months pregnant with our first kid, and I was like, I'm done, and I just left. And that was kind of scary for her, and I'm like, I got this, and I went on KW and I looked up the highest producing teams in our area, and Shawn and the previous iteration of the team was on the top of the list, and I called him. I said, yeah, I just quit my job. Are you guys looking to hire someone? And he's like, that's great. Yeah, we are. And when Shawn was talking about making room for talent, we literally were sitting in a Perkins restaurant the very next morning, and having a conversation. And sometimes talent finds you because of what you're doing. You're doing some things right. But when I first looked under the hood with what they had going on, I'm like, Wolf, this is a mess, but I can fix this. Like, I can fix the administrative side of this, but I know I'm going to be partnering with great agents. And that's the part that I wanted. I wanted to partner with people that I knew were going to be excellent at what they did, because I knew what I would bring to the table.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a fair assessment of how it works out, because I'm just looking at multiple directions, and we're not looking to rush the hire, but I'm definitely looking for talent, and we're going to keep searching until we find the right person.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're smart to take your time. I mean, like Gary said,
Yes.
slow to hire. Just make sure you really vet it. And I would also say, George, lean on other people. Tell the person that you're going to be interviewing, hey, I might be wanting to introduce you to a few people. I know that Andy Noble would be happy to talk to that person. Good coaches and good mentors are always happy to step in. Travis would probably be happy to meet the person, give opinions. My MAPS coach said, if you ever make a big hire and you need my opinion, he goes, I'll get on a call with them myself. So don't be afraid to let other people, in on that process for you, so that you hear more than one person say, yeah, George, you'd be crazy not to bring this person on to your team. It's that important.
In the meantime, I'd also say Shannon Hare has been a huge support for agents that are kind of on the fence, or not quite, they got a lot of business, more than they really want to do the admin part themselves for, but don't quite have the reserves or haven't found the talent yet. And I'd utilize Shannon.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep. And
yeah, George, I was going to say, Shawn, I love that about what you take your time, when you're hiring somebody or even bringing an agent on. And I had a conversation with Shane Montoya not too long ago, and he was saying Jason is always the one to say we need to do career visioning, we need to slow down and take our time. And Shane's obviously, if he feels he's got a good recruit, he wants to move forward, doesn't want to lose them. And I think he's kind of seen the value of that. Is our inclination is we're in a competitive environment. We don't want to lose out on talent, but sometimes that can be a very costly decision, by rushing that forward. And so you believe in the models and the systems, or you don't. And just as the final thing to that thought, George, the reason Travis picked Shawn Korby is because they both have the best heads of hair in the office, and that was really the reason he stayed with him over Hartman. It wasn't anything but that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, George, you got some work to do, buddy.
Well, the worst is when I get called Shawn Korby, and I'm just like, I am not as old as Shawn Korby. Let's just be clear here. I might look
Shawn
it, but
Korby
I'm
with
not.
facial hair.
Yeah.
Shawn Korby with facial hair.
Yep. With the beard I'd grow if I could.
Yeah, it's cool though, because Shawn's known me before I had any kids, and I've got 4 of them, and like we've had that depth of a relationship where I literally would do anything for Shawn's family if he called me anytime. I would just drop whatever I'm doing. And that's what you're looking for, is relationships like that. Because if you're going to be in a partnership in a business together, you want people that got your back no matter what. And I know he would do the same thing.
Yeah, and Nora made a really good point in the chat too, and that's that the group interview part of the process is hugely important, because that plays back. If you might have a rock star, George, and you think that you've got this person, you've got this, and you're super excited about the person, and then you bring them onto the team, and all of a sudden there's this cultural mismatch, and you're like, oops, now you're right back to, because you missed the culture part of it. That can be a problem, and it can also create hard feelings, and sometimes hard feelings, but it can also, the more that you include your team in on the decision process, the more they feel like their opinions are validated, and that they actually have a say in their environment, and it's their team, and it creates that sense of ownership. So you definitely want to do that too. Everybody on the team has got to have a chance to get to know that person before an offer is made, so that they can ask questions and really be on board with the decision as well.
I think that could be tricky too if it's a first hire. So, like a team interview obviously is different when you have a bigger team. But what I was kind of thinking when you were saying that too, Shawn, is there's nothing wrong with a peer interview though. There's nothing wrong with asking a handful of agents in the office or people that in the industry to conduct an interview like that, set up a Zoom call for them and just ask them some questions. Because I think there would be people that would be interested in helping.
Okay, I think those are good points, because I've been thinking about alternatives, and I think that's a good idea, because the honest truth is, when you're starting new and you don't have an admin, you don't really know what makes a good admin who's going to be a part of your team long term. And so I think that's something that we definitely want to utilize, finding this new hire. I definitely want to get other opinions from other agents or other teams to kind of know what we're stepping into, good or bad. I definitely want to know other opinions.
Well, I think that's the beauty of our company, is we're there for each other, and we're there to help each other and build each other up. And that's why we're teaching classes, is we're sharing. We want to be able to give back, because the amount of people that poured into me personally when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, how can they take all this time to just help me? And that's just what KW is. That's just kind of how we roll.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, I know, like 3 weeks ago when I had a transaction accepted, which in this market is crazy to represent a buyer, but as soon as we got the offer accepted, that agent called me and recruited me. She asked me if I thought about her team and if I would look into their team, and she knew who I was, and she knows the KW model, because she works a lot with the nonprofits inside the Dayton area, and she called me directly after the offer is accepted, and she said, have you thought about a company move? And I found out she was the broker. And I was like, no, I have no plans of moving company. I have plans of growing my team, but not really moving company. And so I haven't even opened up her page yet, but that was funny that she called me about that. Yeah, I think you guys made some good points. And that's why I wanted to jump on some of these calls, because we definitely need to focus more on the leverage piece. I feel like that's the piece that's really killing me in the team. So we definitely need to focus on that.
Yeah, it's huge. Once you find that person, George, like I said, you a year into it, you'll feel like, I can't imagine being in business without them. I've had lots of conversations. I'm going to put Nora on the spot here with Andy and Sharon, and they took a long time to find, get to the spot where they realized they needed to find somebody. And then when they hired Nora, they were like, oh my gosh, we think we found somebody. And, a year later after that, I'm like, well, what's it like? And they're like, we can't imagine not being in business with her. She does bring so much to the table. And Nora, I hear you push. That's great. So And that's the mark of a good empire builder. You know, somebody that's willing to say, hey, listen, this doesn't make sense for you to be doing anymore. Or sometimes even, you can't do this anymore. You are forbidden from ever doing this again. That's the kind of person you want to be in business with, so that they can see your blind spots, George, and say, okay, George, no more of that for you. We've got this. You know what I mean? So just a couple of thoughts on that.
Nora or Travis or Lisa, do you guys have any friends who are clones or sisters or brothers?
I've got some kids, but they're not ready yet. I'll keep working on them though. They've got it. My youngest is going to be 13 in July. So can you wait 5 years?
Great.
I definitely always keep my ear out for people who are interested in having a job like mine. So I will let you know if anybody turns out.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. Well, we'll just get this one wrapped up here, and thanks again for popping in here, guys. And thanks, Shawn. I kind of threw him on the spot to team teach here, but I know that he's got a tremendous amount of wisdom when it comes to building a team and insights and stuff. So I was hoping he would be able to share some of that stuff with you all too. So appreciate you guys popping in here. Hope everybody's going to have a nice, productive rest of the day. And next week, I'm going to just
thank you guys.
Talk about hiring an admin. So yeah, no
Thank
problem,
you
Andy.
very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for sharing. This has been fantastic. Really
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
And
Our
feel
pleasure.
Free, anybody has additional questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to answer questions and help in any way we can.
Did we tape? It looks like we did tape this. I'd love for Adam Taffel, who's looking at starting a team, to be able to play this back. And I'm sure there's some folks that couldn't be on that would get a lot of value out of this. So I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, well, and for sure, Andy, feel free to have them reach out if they have specific questions. I know, anybody on our team is more than willing to share.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.